some critics have called this proper police state stuff. Last minute amendments put into this bill, which, I mean, after it had passed through the Commons and after the second reading in the House of Lords extraordinary, effectively evading proper parliamentary scrutiny, some are saying, would ban protesters from, particularly this idea of locking on, attaching themselves to another person, to an object or to land. We've seen this, of course, with Extinction Rebellion and with Insulate Britain. Locking on would become illegal. And the new law is drafted in such a loose way, we understand, that actually you could face 51 weeks imprisonment if you do this. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's extraordinary, and in particular, what you mentioned about the fact that these amendments being railroaded in at the very last minute. The bill has already gone all the way through the House of Commons. It's most of the way through the House of Lords now as well. And to add these amendments in, as you say, some of them are incredibly broad, quite badly worded in places. There are amendments in there which effectively introduce stop and search for protesters. And there are also these new protest banning orders, which effectively strip an individual of their right to protest if they might have caused serious disruption at protest in the past. So there are a huge range of measures in there. To add them on at this late stage is incredibly cynical and nothing really short of an attempt to bypass scrutiny.
I'm somebody who finds the Insulate Britain Extinction Rebellion protests utterly intolerable, and the idea that someone, because they feel strongly about how loft insulation, should be allowed to bring a standstill to one of our major roads in this country, like the M25 or a bridge across our capital city, I find completely intolerable. There is a right to protest. You can march around, Hyde Park. You can stand outside Downing Street, Parliament Square. You can. I've been on anti-lockdown marches. You keep on moving. You keep going. It does cause some disruption to people, especially Saturday, less so for people going to work, but still disruption nevertheless. But it is about a fundamental democratic right for people to show their feelings about things and make demonstrations. A lot of people will say, but I don't mind these people being thrown into jail for a year for gluing themselves to the road and stopping me get to work. Tell me why you shouldn't be facing that sort of penalty for doing that.
I think the most important thing to think of when you're introducing quite draconian legislation like this is to think, is it necessary and is it proportionate? Are there any laws already that are in place which actually could cover the concerns that you have here? I mean, I understand your frustrations completely, but if you look at the law as it is, obstructing a public highway is already an offence.
Yeah.
So there is actually law in place that could cover some of the stuff.
The issue was the police not enforcing the law quick enough. That was the issue.
And there's a danger as well of making laws on top of laws, and it's also never a good idea to make laws for one specific group. I mean, when you make a law, it's important to make sure that you're making it to last the test of time. And one of the things that I think it's really important for politicians and everyone to think about with this bill is you're giving the state a huge amount of power here. Would you be comfortable with your political opponents having the amount of power which is being granted in the future? That's the most important thing. And it might not necessarily be in this particular provision, but there are all sorts of provisions in the protest section where I think just be careful, because
this is it. These rules, you say, have to apply, and you have to be sure that a government. I mean, look, we've seen the most incredibly draconian restrictions on our lives over COVID. People are talking about similar ones for climate change, for goodness sake. So I think people should stop thinking this is pie in the sky, conspiracy theory stuff. We need to be alert to this. I mean, individuals, you mentioned this, individuals with a history of causing serious disruption could also face being banned by the courts from attending certain protests. So it's different from, say, the Insulate Britain being told you can't, you're going to be contempt of court if you go and demonstrate again or protest again on the M25, and then of course they just move somewhere else. They have actually, a number of them have just been sent to jail. I'm quite pleased with, because they breached court orders on very reasonable laws in my view. But this is talking about people who may not have even committed an offence. So you've caused a load of disruption previously, and now you're told you can't go to a demonstration or a similar demonstration again. That is incredibly draconian, and I mean, and frankly, not a law that we should be able to have in a liberal democracy.
I think it's quite frightening, actually. And as you say, it doesn't only apply to people that have committed a protest-related offence, although that would have problems, too. The idea of banning someone from exercising their right to protest. But yeah, you don't even have to have committed an offence. You only have to have caused serious disruption at a protest. It's a really slippery slope.
And who decides what's serious disruption as well?
Well, that's an incredibly subjective term as well, and it's a term that seems to feature throughout this part of the bill. Yeah. the idea that any British citizen should be stripped of their right to protest, particularly if they're entirely innocent of any crime, is very concerning.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can be as annoyed as we all are about, those demonstrations, but we say we've already got the laws in place. That's why people are already in prison. We've got laws in place. We don't need to keep bringing in new laws that are more and more strict, which could one day be used against us and causes we do care about ourselves. Thank you very much for joining us, Mark Johnson from Big Brother Watch.